We're live now. This broadcast is live. Awesome. We're good?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, great. Well, welcome back to Foiling Week 2021 and the Gurit Forum. I am your host, Chris Museler, unfortunately reporting from cloudy Jamestown, Rhode Island. But my co-hosts are Bruno Gentoli and Andrew Pindar. You will remember them from earlier sessions, but also last fall when we did this entire show remotely but live. So they are in Lake Garda. And our topic right now, after the first two this morning that were awesome, is the journey from freestyle to IQFoil. And the cool thing that we've noticed about foiling is it opens up more opportunities for everyone, designers and sailors, sponsors, boat builders, and people, just recreational water sports users. But now we're going to be talking about professional athletes and the opportunities that foiling has opened up for them, particularly from professional freestyle windsurfing into the racing world, the PWA, Professional Windsurfing Association, slalom racing, and then also the IQFoil for the Olympics. So without further ado, from Gran Canaria, fresh off of their racing in Israel, we have Sarakita Offringer and Oda Johan. So welcome very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And what we're going to do is we're going to start out by just saying, it's really cool to have not just athletes, not just female athletes, but board sport athletes. It's really nice that we're putting a little bit of emphasis on design, competition, and recreation in the smaller hydrofoil space where a lot of movement is being made. So just give me a little brief. Both of you are 1-2 in the world and have been in freestyle competition in professional windsurfing, which it's every guy and girl's dream to race in windsurfing and compete in windsurfing. But Sarakita, you just won the slalom event in Israel. But tell me where you're from, how you got into wind sports.
Yeah, so I am from the Caribbean, an island called Aruba. It's a Dutch island. And I've been windsurfing for about 20 years now. Cool. Aruba's just windy all year round. It's flat water, shallow, so it's very easy. It's very accessible to windsurf. And at first I didn't like it so much because I was only 9 at the time. Couldn't pull up the sail because it was too heavy. But then my brother kept on windsurfing, and the year after I went to cheer him on at a contest in Aruba. And I think this is the vibe of this windsurfing event is what I fell in love with and is why I still love windsurfing today. So people from all over the world were there competing against each other. But on the beach, there were so many stories to tell, and they were all friends, and they were just like having such a good time that it really sparked me to try windsurfing again. And then I competed in Bonaire about a month later with a whole Aruban team. And just from then on, is like I never looked back. Like windsurfing has been my favorite. I almost still call it a hobby, but it's like my favorite activity. Not only for the sport itself, because it's just in the things that you can learn, but for the traveling, for the people you meet and the experiences you have because of it. So yeah, that's why I love it so much. And over the years I've been competing on the professional tour, and I started out freestyling, then moved to slalom, and then moved to wave sailing. So by now I've won 12 freestyle world titles, 4 in slalom and 1 in wave sailing. And I'm not slowing down yet. I'm just loving traveling and competing so much. So I'll be doing that for a while, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome. And that exposure, I mean, it's something we know in the other sides of sailing and wind sports, but man, the vibe just seems so much better with board sports, just a little bit more fun and friendly. And how about you, Sarah? Did you have a similar beginning to your wind sports?
Oh, you mean me? Oda?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Oda. Yeah.
Yes, well, we had a very different way of starting windsurfing. I was playing a professionally handball for the top clubs in Norway and for the Norwegian junior team. Mm-hmm. And then I was actually visiting a family member, and I walked out on the balcony, and her neighbor walked out, and he was a windsurfer. So if I would have walked out on a balcony, I don't think I would ever discover windsurfing, because it's not really I would never be at the beach when it would be windy and stormy, So it was just, I would say, good luck that I met that guy that took me windsurfing. But I was still playing handball for a few more years and finished my studies. And after that, I just wanted to take 1 year off to windsurf, and that's like 10 years already now. So yeah, I started competing, and then you get more and more into it, and I think I discovered really freedom the moment I started windsurfing and kind of quit my professional handball career.
Awesome. You know, both of you talk about this. It was a chance find discovery, you know, that you guys both of you found the sport and got into it professionally. And I think one thing we try to think about in sailing and in foiling is that how do we make it less of a, you just happen to live next to a windsurfer, you know, and Sarakita, you just happen to be born in an environment where windsurfing came to you. And so we try to find out ways to expose people that wouldn't have been exposed before. But let's go right to the hydrofoiling side of things really quick, and then we'll get into Bruno and Andrew's questions as well. Both of you are transitioning into foils. Foils have been allowed into the PWA and the slalom, but you can choose, which is something that's fascinating to me. What were your feelings when they introduced foils to the racing for the PWA? Did you think this is awesome, or were you like, I don't know, I think I'm just going to do regular fins? Or
okay. For me, first of all, like if I could choose, I would only do freestyle full time if we would have like enough events.
Yeah.
But the moment we didn't have more than like 2 events of the year, I started slalom sailing. And then I was one of the first ones that kind of went into foiling, but I only did a few sessions a year because I really didn't have a lot of time. And I was just lucky that I always happened to be in places where I would have enough wind for freestyle. But later on, like this year in foiling, is the first time I'm actually dedicated some sessions to the foiling. The moment they kind of announced that it would be an Olympic discipline, first I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do it because I have enough with foiling, a bit of wave and slalom. But now more people got into it, and I was thinking like I don't want to sit on the sideline without trying it. So we did an event in Garda, and also we did a training camp in Aruba to really learn how it is. But there's so much training. Like there's a lot of girls that already foiled for like 4 years, and they're really good. So now it's just you need to take your time and think about if you want to take away your freestyle time to foiling.
right.
And now they have, for the men, they have foiling and slalom together in the PWA. But for women, it's separate. They either say, okay, you go on the foil or you go on the slalom. Maybe next year that will be changed. We don't know yet. So I guess it's a good thing that it's together. But the moment you have other disciplines to do it at the same time, you just need to make sure that you get enough training for all the disciplines. So that's a bit of a challenge for me at the moment now.
Cool. And Sarakita, what were your feelings when the foil started to come into the professional series?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like I'm maybe one of the last ones that jumped onto that train because I was already doing freestyling, wave, and slalom, which are disciplines that I absolutely love and I would want to be doing for a long, long time. So I really only started foiling last December, I think. And foiling came around. Because before IQA was RS6, which didn't necessarily spark my interest to go to the Olympics because I rather do something that I really, really love. And I've tried RS6, and there's also like a weight class to it, so it would be too much effort. Yes, because of that, I didn't necessarily have an Olympic dream, but with IQFoiling, it kind of gives us as PWA riders the opportunity to, it kind of gives you a chance to maybe go to the Olympics. And then I've been trying it out a bit, and it is a lot of fun, like, and that's the most important thing to me. If I enjoy what I'm doing, then I'll do my best for it. And the foiling is a lot of fun. So when you went to Garda, we did my first course racing event, which I've never done. And it's very challenging, and you have to think a lot, and there's a lot of tactics to it. And again, for me, it's a new discipline. So it's just a new challenge to work towards. So I do really like it. And I think that's the most important thing, but I also need to figure out how I'm going to juggle all the different disciplines with IQFoiling, because as you said, I live off of windsurfing. For example, I do it professionally, and windsurfing, wave, and slalom are the ones that are where I earn my living, and not necessarily the Olympic discipline. So that is actually going to be interesting to see how I decide to put everything together.
Great. Now I'm going to move this. That's really illuminating for us, because it's easy for us to look from the outside and say, these athletes are, they just do whatever, the associations ask them to do, but it's not as easy as that. Like you're saying, your first ever course racing, that's a big deal and hard to figure out. And maybe not what you had in your dream progression, but you're doing it and it's fun.
Yeah, I think, no, that's the thing. That's the cool thing about windsurfing. You can always learn something new, and this course racing is something new, and it's a lot of fun. So for me, it's about just becoming the best windsurfer as I can be, and this is adding to it. It's adding to the fun. Imagine foiling in 6 knots. Like, that's the best discipline to do at that time. So
yeah,
it adds to the fun.
Yeah, you get so many more days on the water also with foiling.
Yeah, and that's a great perspective. And I want to just talk, Sarakita, you talked about that opportunity that you didn't have before to go to the Olympics for your disciplines, and now you have that opportunity. Andrew, this is kind of bittersweet in the discussion. So the PWA moves to offering hydrofoiling, and then the IOC approves IQFoil for one of the Olympic disciplines for windsurfing. But windsurfing always comes in through racing. The original windsurfer was like these parties on the beach, and then they got into racing, and we saw what that did. It ratcheted up equipment and the amount of breeze that people sailed in, and it was a challenge for windsurfing to go into racing so hard. Andrew, what do you think about windsurfing, in its evolution in the Olympics and now going to IQFoil, which, like Sarakita said, light winds, it's awesome, but it's still racing, and it's not like watching a freestyle event, which is like more of like a festival atmosphere, and the competitors are more like buddies. Do you have an opinion on terms of the decision to go right to not take the opportunity of freestyle sailing?
Yeah, well, for me, it's a trend, isn't it? And I went for a walk this morning from our hotel for half an hour down to the castle in Malchesney, and there at 6:30 this morning, the lake was full of people out there on every type of board, and there were wings, and there were kites, and there were windsurfers. There were just the lake was full. Because it was blowing hard, and that for me was a great thing to see. I mean, I have a personal interest in offshore sailing, and I was disappointed that the offshore mixed doubles that was proposed by World Sailing through World Sailing to the IOC was rejected. But somebody's problem has become somebody else's opportunity here, in the way that the foiling has been accelerated even more into the Olympics. And having seen there this morning, reinforced with my own eyes that people are just coming here in their vacation time or as part of foiling week to compete in events, then people are making the vote with their feet. But I've got a question for the two of you, if I may. Thinking of the world of sailing and beaches and windsurfing and so on, and Chris, you talked about it with it's what's cool. It's a cool part of the sport to be in. Quite different to people who are in keel boats and some of the more regimented history of sailing. Do you guys feel as though you're closer to being in the surfboarding type of community to sailing, or do you see yourselves as sailors? Because some of the people with my level of grey hair and age would say, "Oh, well, this new stuff and the kites and everything else and the foils, that's not proper sailing." Do you feel yourself as you're in the vanguard, you're in the delivery of where sailing is going, and that people who've got grey hair and just wanting to hold on to the past? Do you feel that that's the case? Where do you feel you're in that transition of the sport?
I feel like freestyle is a bit more like the surfers, and the IQFoiling is a bit more the sailing class.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, feel it.
You really feel it, like. Yeah, it's a big difference actually. So it's kind of cool to be in the two world, but freestyle is a bit like slope style snowboard in the park, like you really go with a group of friends and you train really, really good and hard, but it's all about not necessarily being the first finishing in the finish line that is in racing and sailboating. But it's more like, oh, like sick, you nailed that trick, and you want your friends to see your new trick. But in IQFoiling, it's just like really, really different. At the start line with 40 girls, there's a lot of shouting, and no, it's more like when you do freestyle contest, even though we compete against each other, like if one of our competitors are doing a sick trick right in front of you, you kind of need to be like, whoa, sick. Yeah. It's because it's kind of like the skills you can do with your own gear instead of like, okay, I'm going to outsail the other one on the course. It's a really different vibe on the beach for competition in freestyle and in sailing. Yeah. But both are good. It's just different. And
but is that bringing a different emotion out in you? Is there a different? So when you're doing your freestyling, which is, I guess you're a bit like a peacock, you're on display, which is different to when you're competing to win a race. Do you have a different emotion when you're doing that?
Yeah. So when you're freestyling, you have to be very creative. You're always looking on the water in front of you, which trick you can do for that. And you kind of want to like show off a little bit. While racing is, I don't know, maybe you can answer this better than me.
Maybe more strategic.
Like you wanna show more yourself. Like when I'm doing a freestyle contest, you're just focusing on yourself a lot of times. But when you're sailing, you really need to like look around you where the other person is and try to do better in a very different way. I don't know if that.
I'm guessing that the freestyling means that you can handle a board, you can make it do anything. So that presumably, if you can learn your sail racing tactics, your boat handling, your board handling means that when you're going to come up against another boarder, you come to a mark or turning mark or something, your ability to handle your board should be in advance of other people who haven't had that freestyling background. Is that a fair thought process?
I just heard a story of Sarakita when we went to Garda that apparently she wanted to do tack upwind. And then somehow the wind came from the other side, so she did a little 360 with the sail and the board. And the other girl that was like one of the best, she was like, if that ever happened to me, I would have fallen, you know. But Sarah just freestyled her way through the course there. So like, maybe you get into a few situations where where you get backwinded, where another sailor has never even been backwinded before, and you can get out of the situation. But in the end, the one that spends the most time, maybe you learn faster, but at the same time, if you spend the most time racing, you will most likely be better in that.
Cool. I think mostly as a freestyler, you just have a very good feel for your gear and for your, like you have a good awareness of where you are with the sail and the board and everything. And like you said, so handling wise, I would say we would already be really good, but yes, you would still need to learn the tactics. You would still need to learn how specifically the sail and board functions. And also, I guess for us, we'd still need to spend more time on the foil because that is also a very technique that you still need to learn because we're so used to sailing with small fins, and that's also very different. That's going to take some time, but I do think that we could pick that up quickly. The toughest would definitely be all the rules and the tactics during a race like that.
I guess what helps also is that we already, like in my case, I know that I need to train more foiling. I just need to find out if I want to take my freestyle time to do that. But to learn a freestyle trick, for example, is like there's so many hours of work to learn a trick, like hours of crashing. And if you can take your time and kind of take that training mentality of never giving up into foiling, I think you can get really good.
I guess what that also gives us is that like we're really good at analyzing things, right? Like you crash one time, so you need to really think about how to do it better.
Yeah, or like for example in sailing, why did I come so slow out of the tack? Why did I not jibe? So yeah, we analyze everything.
And so for the tactics side of it, have you as the freestyles come into course sailing, are you finding people from other parts of the world of sailing who are coaching you on the tactics of the race starts and what to do when you're coming into a mark, or is it something you're just learning on your own? How are you going about making sure that you can utilize all the skills you've got as freestylers, but also, presumably it's not just a drag race. You're needing to also have tactics and be aware of the wind shifts and all the rest of it. Where's that coming from? Is that coming from people within the board side of it, or from within traditional sailing?
I still can't see a wind shift, honestly.
Yeah. When I'm freestyling, I'm always looking for the perfect Gus to do that and that trick. And now I'm looking for Gus to, okay, when should I turn? So like, with it, I was trying to like learn from the best ones. So I followed one of the best French girls, and then we realized 2 minutes too late that we oversailed the mark and had to go 2 minutes down into the mark. So my first contest, I really want to like kind of look where the best girls, what they would do just to learn. And we had a coach in Aruba. He was also kind of new to the sport, so we kind of all learned together. So of course, I think it's a big advantage if you can be like in a sailing club with really experienced coaches. We had a few days with one of the best Dutch sailors. He went with us on the boat, and he just shouted to us what to do. And just those 2 sessions, like I learned so much. And imagine you will have that every day, 7 times for the week. You will learn a lot. So we don't really have have France, for example, like they have 3 coaches with 7 girls or something like that. We don't have that in the same way with experience, but we did have a nice coach in Aruba that was kind of coming into the sport new, just as us.
I think our trajectory until now, at least, like we've been training in Aruba with the guys mostly. And so that was really good to learn about the foil, learn about how to race and everything, but it's not very, in the end, you cannot really compare because the guys have a different sail, they are heavier, they go faster. So once we competed in Garda with a fleet of 40 girls, that's where I feel like I learned the most when it comes to racing, at least, because the girls have the same sail, they kind of have the same weight, same speed and everything. And I think in those 4 days of sailing, I learned, or it helped me to set a reference for what else I need to learn, and what type of people you need to train with and how to move forward to the next contest. So the next contest will be in Switzerland in August, and we'll have another training camp, I think in 2 weeks with another group of girls. And I think after that, that's gonna be a good, and that will be the second reference point to what extent we've improved and what the future will look like if we should put more time into it.
And if people wanted to come and see you doing that session in Switzerland, where is that? Is it Silverplanen, or whereabouts is it?
Yeah, it's Silverplan. I think it starts on the 18th of August. It's the Worlds, right? So
this is maybe the first time I'm also training waist and freestyle, and we're flying and driving to Italy to do this dedicated foiling training camp with a coach and I think 6 other girls. So that's maybe the first time we will join one of those typical training camps like the other countries have had already for a long time.
We'll foil for 6 days in a row.
Can you handle it?
You can freestyle. You can freestyle in the morning, with the north winds.
We already agreed to not take any other course with us, because the moment it gets more windy, we will jump on the freestyle game. But now we need to force ourselves to just do foiling in all conditions, because you will compete in like any type of wind.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'd like to steer this conversation to 2 different parts, because we can talk for like 2 hours or whatever. It's awesome. So we're going to steer towards sponsorship, then your influence on the sport, how other people see themselves doing what you're doing. And then we'll end up talking about both of the Windsurfing Academy that you both have teamed up on it, because that'll talk really much about right now, but also the future. Hey, as a racing sailor, it's really exciting to hear you all discover that training progression, how ultra focused and, comparing to each other and climbing the ladder very quickly with group training. But I also, personally, I see so much energy in freestyle. Even if you're just watching it on YouTube, you can feel it. You can see your smile and your dejection if you crash, and people, cheering you on the whole time. Sponsorship wise, as you make this transition, Sarakita talked about, I have to balance my career, which pays me, versus Olympic sailing, which, where's the funding for that? Are your sponsors excited about foil racing as much as they are with the freestyle? Will they follow you, or is it a challenge moving into IQFoil for sponsorship?
For us?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, so for me, it's a bit different story. Like my sponsors pay me for freestyle wave and slalom,
Yeah.
also foiling, but the PWA foiling. If IQ means I'm using a different brand still, which means I'm promoting a different brand, and
Yeah.
obviously my sponsor is not happy about that, or they don't necessarily want me to. They don't want me to post about a different brand, which is 100% understandable.
Yeah.
Just the interesting and hard part about it, it is an Olympic discipline, right? And yeah, it would be hard to like let that opportunity go to the Olympics for windsurfing, for a discipline that's actually a lot of fun, you know?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I'm still trying to find my way in that. But they support me for all the PWA stuff, and I just need to figure out how to do it with IQ, I would say.
That's an interesting challenge. I didn't think about that in terms of the selected equipment. I always felt so weird that there, people use all sorts of brands for board sports.
The thing is that why it's so interesting right now is that IQ is a discipline that appeals to the masses, because what we had before with RS6 is not, no offense, but it's not necessarily a discipline that you're going to do in your free time. This
Right.
gear you're not going to sell to a bigger group of people for them to do it in their free time. But the IQ gear is a discipline that appeals to many more people. So an amateur windsurfer can buy an IQ set and be like that Olympic sailor, or in our case as professionals, people buy the gear that we are using to be kind of like us or do what we do. And this is what's happening right now with this Olympic discipline also. It's something that everyone can do. And I think that's why it's a bit harder for the sponsors to allow us as professionals to also be sailing that different gear. Ideally, like my sponsor should be able to, my sales sponsor at least should be able to produce that sail as well. Then I can just promote it. But that's not the case right now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, for me it's a bit easier as I'm lucky to be sponsored by Severn and Starboard, and those are the ones that now have the sailing.
Yeah, easy.
It's just like, it's easier like to promote it at least. So then it's kind of easier for my other Norwegian sponsors.
No, I love it. And one thing I want to move into is about the exposure. You were just saying, Sarakita, about male and female sailors see the gear that you have. They want to be on that. They're excited about it. You're showing it off. In the Olympics, it's a little bit different. But let's just talk about overall participation. Like you said, taking a wind foil board just for a rip. Everyone wants to do that right now, right? Because it's fun. And the other side of it too is with Olympic exposure, it gets sailors like you in the mix with the windsurf racers that they hadn't seen before. Characters that they've never seen before, because you're coming from different disciplines. They're seeing the Olympics are going to show more and very different sailors. You're from two different countries. Sarakita, you're a person of color it's very rare in our sport, actually, particularly in the Olympic sailing, to see anyone of color in sailing. So do you think that, bringing the foil into the Olympics is a big deal for the sport to introduce to a whole bunch of different groups of sailors?
Yeah. So I feel like with this new discipline, it actually is, in windsurfing at least, is bringing all the windsurfers together. So at this event in Garda, for example, with this IQ, you had riders like Uda, me, Lena Erdil, Delphine, Marion from France, who are originally started competing in the PWA, but now also see the chance to compete in the Olympics. And then we were coming together with all the RS6 sailors. And even now in Israel, where we had slalom and foiling, some of the foiling girls joined the slalom as well. And us as slalom sailors, we joined the foiling. And I think this is the one time where you can actually draw a line, where all the girls can come together in one racing discipline, because we have several racing disciplines, and it kind of leaves the idea of like who is actually the best racer out there. And I feel like IQ brings all of that together and gives kind of all of us equal opportunity to battle it out on the water, I think. And I think that's super, super cool. And I think, I'm a bit too competitive, I guess, but I want to be on that starting line as well, competing against the R6 girls, competing against the girls on PWA who do slalom normally. And I'm getting excited already.
And Andrew, Andrew has a big perspective. Last fall when we did this all live, but everyone was, in their rooms. Andrew was really Sarakita. He felt just like both of you. He was just pumped up talking to everyone about foiling and saying, what are we doing wrong on the global sailing or world sailing side of things if we're not promoting what people are most excited about? Andrew, what do you, getting the feedback from Oda and Sarakita, what you're feeling now about, the hydrofoiling in the Olympics, and what do you think that's going to do for the sport? Is it just beyond, more freestyle sailors racing and getting more people together, like Sarakita said? How about the big picture for the sport?
Well, for me, it's. I think I come back to the comment about me going for an early morning walk. Yeah. There weren't people out there in any keel boats. There weren't people out in dinghies. There were, there were 3 or 4 moths out there, but there were people who were, and it's a bit like foiling week itself, isn't it? You've got Paul Goodison and Tom Slingsby. You've got people who are sailing in the America's Cup and Sail GP. People who are Olympic medalists from former dinghies who are here and choosing to go foiling, and one form or another as the thing they want to do out of choice. So I think that there is a trend that the 2 of you are pursuing, which is a world trend. I don't think we can put that genie back in the bottle. I think that you are literally you're riding the crest of a wave here, aren't you? Or you're flying above the wave, because that's where the direction of travel is. I think it's what young people are seeing. It's what exciting people to go and participate in this type of wind-powered water sport. So for me, Chris, they're on the money, really. And I think that it's time that people who are old and grey-haired like me recognise that, and that we promote and support that within the wider sport of sailing.
Awesome, and let's give some credit where credit is due with World Sailing and the IOC for making that pretty quick transition into selecting the equipment for the windsurf events, the men and women events. And the other side of it too is like you both were saying, it's any opportunity to get professional sailors into the Olympic disciplines is a cross-reference, not just for the sailors, but like I've been a fan my entire life of windsurfing. And when Andrew says Paul Goodison and Tom Slingsby, that's great. I'm a fan of those guys too. But to be very honest with you, women wave sailors over the years, from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, and then when freestyle came in with both of you, I've been watching you your whole careers, and I would almost argue that there are more eyeballs on you two than there are on Paul Goodison and Tom Slingsby. So to bring you into the fold and get you excited about Olympic competition, that has a multiplier effect of cross-pollinating fans. And that's something sailing really has a hard time figuring out, is like, what do we do with our fans? But what I want to do now, towards the end of our conversation, is let's talk about the kids, because children are our future. And I can picture both of you when you were young. Sarakita, you're talking about struggling, pulling up the windsurfing sail, and windsurfing's not easy. And we had Robbie Nash on in the fall, and we were talking about wing foiling. He's like, we're like, what about wind foiling? He's like, man, that's hard. It took a while. But, where do you see, now that you're getting into the foiling side of things, for young girls and young boys, where do you see a pathway now? Are there clear pathways for them to try to be like Oda, to be like Sarakita? They see themselves there. They see young women see themselves there. Young boys are inspired by your tricks, and now they see you going into racing. Do you see a pathway for them now that might be easier with foiling? Or maybe not. It's too early.
Well, okay, so first of all, I would say, like, I think freestyling, for example, is the part of the sport that gets kids inspired. You know, they want to do those tricks, and it just looks like a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
Even anytime I see a freestyle video, like it makes me want to go out there. So I think that attracts people, and it is more accessible. Like you need one sail, one board, and you don't necessarily need specific conditions. You can freestyle anywhere. Whereas the foiling, and there's no two ways about it, is expensive. So that's the one thing where I'm thinking if it is actually very accessible for the youth and younger kids.
Good point.
Even though you just need one sail and one board and you can go out in any type of condition, that also helps a lot. Like kids, like in this discipline, kids just need one set, so that helps a lot. But this set is,
it's spendy.
I would say.
Yeah, and I just saw like I met some Dutch. I trained with the Dutch junior team, and they were kind of in between in the age. So they first had to buy like the youth gear and then the senior gear. So in the end, I don't know if it's accessible for everyone, but maybe there will be sailing clubs that could also help out the kids that would not have like strong parents financially for the support. So I don't know how that works in the clubs in general, but I'm pretty sure that you need to be able to have the gear. But of course, it's cheaper than sailing boat and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But I think because it's an Olympic discipline, I'm sure there's like better structures around it to make it more available.
Yeah. I guess like if you really want to get into that, you should like contact. With freestyle, you just go to your beach and you'll find freestylers.
Cool.
With foiling, you can get into clubs, sailing clubs, and I'm sure they will make a way to make your dream come true.
Well, let's use this transition and talk about, is it the Windsurf University? Can I see the shirt? The Windsurf University. So bravo to both of you for starting a pathway for young sailors. And tell us a little bit about the Windsurf University. I mean, I don't even know anything about it and I want to join it. I like the t-shirt.
So like we used to have a lot of clinics around the world, and we have a festival in Norway every year, doing a lot of private coaching, group coaching, everything. And then we're just sitting in the car driving one time. I was like, whoa, what about like online windsurfing coaching? And Sarah was like, yeah, that's sick. Because the way we are training freestyle is that we will go in the water, film each other, come home, analyze everything, analyze everything, each move, how to learn it. And even when you're learning, starting to learn windsurfing, just the beach starts, water start, up on in the sail. If you can visualize yourself doing that before you get on the water, you will already learn much faster. Right. So teaching is not necessarily always the best when you're actually on the water, somebody telling you. But if you already know before you go on the water what to focus on, you will improve a lot. So we had a few test Zoom online coaching windsurfing meetings with the customers. And I have seen, and so they film, they don't have to film, but if they have videos, we will analyze that together with them. So they will show them maybe like their best trial with jibe or something. And then we show a video of a perfect jibe. So then we can say, okay, where you're going. So anything from beginner, intermediate, advanced, like you can teach anything online. And I do think it's nice to like sit on your chair, watch the videos and really analyze. That's how we train freestyle. And to get that into any kind of windsurfer's way of thinking to improve faster. So this is like something like after a lot of meetings now, I would say that online windsurfing coaching is the best way to make people progress and help them to make their dream come true.
Yeah, and that reaches so many more people than if you just have clients wherever you happen to be around the world. It's very efficient.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a clinic in Karpathos now, 2 weeks, one in July, one in September. So you can like join us for a week of training, which should be really good. But let's say in Corona times you cannot travel, or it's really wind at your home spot, you want to be there, but you're just sailing by yourself. And like now you kind of have your own coach. So one lady now in the US, she's having a session today, and this evening we're gonna have a meeting. So she will show me videos about what she just learned, what she's struggling with. So then for the next session, she can see like the solution, how to land the move that she's practicing.
Right.
With a bit of help. It's the same as we need now. We go to Garda with the coach to he will help us realize what we need to learn to progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She actually improved a lot already. No?
She improves a lot, yeah. 3 online lessons, she learned a new move. So it's like, it's really incredible to see. And this is basically how I learned freestyling, analyzing everything, video, talking about it. And so now doesn't matter which level you are, you can kind of have your personal coach. So it's either you have a meeting with Sarah or, and it's been really, really cool.
Yeah, it's so much fun. So much fun.
I think that's like literally the best job in the world.
I wish I had that like 15 years ago when I was trying to land my first puck.
Yeah,
It's really, really hard. So
It's never too late. You can still enroll at our university. You're welcome.
I think Andrew should enroll.
Question I had to for both of you. I know how hard it is for as a frustrated freestyler as I am. Yeah, I know. So how do you manage? You were talking about this time, and you say you have to be careful with the amount of time you spend on the foil and training wave, slalom, and freestyle. And I know how long it is to land any trick on freestyling. What do you try to push the foil when it's light and you cannot go for a freestyle session? How do you actually do it right now? I guess you both train together. And the other question I have is two-part. I know you're training, or I saw you along with the Alabout sisters that come from a complete different world. I'd say they come from racing and the Olympic world. Are they kind of your coaches in the water? Do they give you some tips when you go sailing together?
I forgot the first question. Oh yeah, how do I train?
Yeah, your time.
Yeah, so for me, because I've been combining the disciplines for the last few years, and it's as you said, like I go out training something depending on the conditions, and that way you make the best use of the conditions. So I had a mini struggle, for example, when I was in Aruba, where it would, if let's say 2 days it was 25 knots, I would dedicate that time to freestyling. But because I was training in a team and they were only focused on foiling, I had to go foiling. Or they were foiling all the time. So that's the one thing that you need to keep in mind when you do more disciplines, that the hours you don't spend on foiling, that those hours are being done by other riders. That's, I guess, one down part of that. But at the same time, for me, it's about enjoying myself and having fun doing a sport that I love. So then that means
something new.
And learn something new. And that means I will do a discipline depending on the conditions. And the second question I forgot. The Alabout sisters. What I wanted to say about that, I think foiling is a very new discipline, so everyone is still learning a lot. And I think I actually only met them now for the first time in Israel. Like I see them online, and Blanca, for example, puts videos online. So yeah, I do definitely follow that stuff. And now having met up, you get to know people, and you do learn about let's say about foiling a bit more. So yeah, in general, I'm looking forward. For example, in 2 weeks, we're going to do the training camp in Legada, where we're going to exchange more information with the other girls that have been foiling for a longer time.
Cool. Well, we are going to have to start to wrap this up. What I want to ask you both is, maybe 10 years ago, maybe none of us saw, when I first started watching you all professionally, it wasn't on my radar screen to watch you racing around an Olympic race course. And so now everyone's psyched, to learn something new. You're still doing your professional disciplines as well. Do you have any idea what you think you're going to be doing in 5 years' time? And, even after this next Olympic cycle, can you imagine something different than you racing? Do you think you'll be only racing, or always freestyle and racing, or doing something different?
In 5 years, well, it's hard to say. On the flight too, we actually made a note like where we will be in, I think it was 10 years or something. Mm-hmm. And I think we will I will always win for sure. Like I will always windsurf.
Yeah.
Because compared to any other sport, windsurfing is what I will do in a holiday. But for me, it's maybe a bit different from Sarah. Like she's from Aruba, it's windy, it's warm every day.
Yeah.
And for example, when I was studying in Norway and it was windy, even though it was only 4 degrees, like even windsurf between ice flakes, because I was so addicted. So we don't have a lot of windy days. So every session is very special at home.
Yeah.
So I think once you are windsurfing, like you always go sailing when it's windy.
Yeah.
While if you live maybe in the Caribbean, maybe you can take a few days off just because it's windy. But I would for sure in 5 years keep sailing. I want to have clinics. I want the Windsurf University to be like huge.
Yeah. Cool.
And yeah, racing. Yeah, it's hard to say, but I feel like I'm still learning more and more. So I don't want to stop.
Steep learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how about you, Sarakita? What's the future hold for you, do you think? Do you know?
So the thing is, yeah, so I've been competing for about 15 years now. And I think 5 years ago, I was already like, you know what, it's been a while, maybe I'll slow down. But then every year, I just enjoy it more and more. On top of that, we had the pandemic. So it's been about 1.5 years without competing, which I feel like it's been taking away from me. So I need to like, get those years back. So I will keep on competing because it pushes me in windsurfing. And my main goal is to just get better in windsurfing, become the best windsurfer I can be. And that is through competing as well. So I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be only racing because I love freestyling and wave sailing too much. Like it's necessary for the soul, So I think just the sport windsurfing, I'm going to keep on doing it for a long time. And as long as I keep on learning, which right now is learning more in foiling, I'm going to keep on doing that. And then ultimately the main goal is just to get more people into the sport because windsurfing is a small sport. And again, now with this new Olympic discipline, I do see that it does open up it opened the gates for like more people to get into the sport, and I think ultimately that should be the main focus for windsurfing to grow the sport to more people again, as it used to be back in the days.
Great.
But,
well, go ahead, Oda.
Yeah, I think for me, and I guess it's maybe the same for Sarah also, like every day, like yesterday we were sailing in 40 knots, like you crash so hard, you land on the boom from 3-meter fall, you're sore and everything, but the feeling when you learn something new is like the ultimate happiness feeling. So I am really scared in my older days that I will not get this feeling like that I'm learning something, because literally every day, if I really go in for it, like I can learn something new. And I just hope that will like keep that coming for the next years. And maybe when you get older, you feel like you maybe not improving, but then there can be like new things that you can do, like maybe get better in racing tactics or something like that. So that's like the goal for me personally, is to like always improve something, because then it makes me just really, really happy. And also to get more people into it. That's why we had this Windsurf University, have clinics, windsurfing festival, and yeah, just try to be a good ambassador for like really the best sport in the world.
Cool. And let's keep cross-pollinating with your Windsurfing University and your events with Foiling Week. I mean, I think an amazing outcome of having foiling in the windsurf discipline would be for everyone to realize that athletes are cross-discipline athletes. And all of a sudden people are saying, hey, I'm watching the Olympics, but I want to go see the PWA freestyle events, or I want to see the PWA slalom events. So I think, and again, just more exposure to more diversity in our sport, different sailors, people from all different backgrounds and genders. So we're really excited to have you on. We're fans. So we finally had an opportunity to get you in the Foiling Week, and we'll keep it going. We just ran out of time. We've got another live session coming up to talk about the foiling media. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So,
good luck. Have
Thank
fun.
you very much.
Thank you, Bruno and Andrew. And we'll just get ready for our foiling media program. And we'll be talking about athletes like this and how the media covers them right now. So thanks very much, everyone.
See you
Bye.
guys.
Cheers.
Bye.